Hello, I'm Fred Beckhusen with Microtechnology Services, the developer for the iPatient survey system. It runs on a small tablet and a kiosk. The system supports some 25 different spoken languages and survey system, all interactive with the client. And it's intended to be very simple and easy to use. I'm going to give you a quick demo today with this screen. A nurse or a person who knows something about the patient's history will enter a patient's ID. Here we'll just type in my name. We're going to pick the person's sex, whether they're male or female, and enter their age. This is what people always want to know, and we're just going to pick Dr. Villarreal is their doctor. And we're going to discharge this patient, and the interesting thing about them is they need a wheelchair. Which is something we just simply point of capture. We have multiple department levels that we can pick. We can pick an oncology or ER outpatient. I'm going to pick the in-out default survey, which is just a are you leaving or going? And we can pick a language. I think I'll start with English and we'll switch later to a different language. We have some 25 different languages it's automatically translated to. And we're going to run a survey. This is the coupon that would be handed out to the patient. All we have to do is print this and hand it to the patient, and it will take them over to the terminal and slide it into the terminal. Once they have printed this, we're going to switch the screen to what's actually on the terminal. And when they have scanned the QR code in, the screen will automatically come up.
Registration process. How would you rate the courtesy of the person at the registration desk?
And the survey is ready to begin. By just slipping the paper in, this screen comes up automatically. If they don't understand the question, they can click it with their finger and repeat it. They can pick a particular rating, such as excellent or average or poor or none of the above, and move on to the next screen. So we have average courtesy. Once they've clicked on the next screen, it will automatically go to the next question and speak it in the chosen language.
Registration process. How would you rate the courtesy of the person who took your personal information and your healthcare insurance information?
Now, just for a little bit of fun here, we're going to hack into it, and I'll give you an example of that same sort of process done in a different language.
Registration process. Con Google, yo rate the courtesy of the person at the registration desk. خكس تخاتيون خكس هولوك يوم خطيت هي كوخ تسيوت هي بخسونت هي خكس تخاتيون دسك.
The data is sent live in real time to a SQL Server database. It's stored online so the customers can access and get reports. We have a couple of very simple reports I'd like to show you now on the screen.
Concerning the languages, Fred, how many languages does the program support for phase one?
I believe 25 or 26 to be exact.
And take us through an example. Let's say that the customer has a question, and so then that question gets translated into all 25 or 26 languages?
Yes, it's entirely automatic. You do have the ability to go back in and tweak it. For example, if you enter your question in Portuguese and you're not conversant very well with, or you use complex words that the translator cannot handle, it will translate them in all the other languages. Maybe you decide there's a better syntax for some languages. You can then zero in on using one of these screens and change the question in another language to perhaps be a better formatted. It works quite well for the Germanic, Spanish, Portuguese, English languages. The translations are very, very good. When you get into the Indic languages or the Asia Pacific ones, Chinese, Japanese in particular, translation to English is rather difficult. And as you well know, it's a little bit garbled syntax. For medical type surveys, that's kind of critical that we have a Japanese person through your interpretation company, of course, can go in and clean those kinds of automatic translations up to make them quite pretty. Whereas if you don't need Japanese, well, you can skip that. But depending on where your hospital is in the country, you've got a choice of up to 26 different language translations, spoken as well as printed form.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about the control panel. Let's say that a customer has maybe 20 sites, and at each site, let's say we have 10 users at every site. So we're looking at maybe 200 users.
So there's a drill down screen. If you'll switch your camera over here, here we have a typical reported area where what we have at the top of the screen are the ability to pose questions, answers, and get a hold of your account info. Here is a list of questions for a particular survey for a particular department. And this survey consists of, you type in a registration, a title, and a question. And you can also change the various answers, such as to a yes, no, or a 5-way smiley face, excellent, great, okay, or even ask them questions. Let me slide this over, make it a little bigger. Down here at the very bottom, you can have, for example, who is your current provider? Is he a private doctor, a primary care physician? Who referred you to our facility here? Would be a private doctor. So you can ask ad hoc questions, and it will vocalize those questions and change all the lettering, all the titling, even the next and previous buttons become languagedized. So if you speak Spanish, you will see not next, but proximo. If you see the word none of the above, and you happen to speak, for example, Portuguese, it's going to come out to be whatever none of the above is in Portuguese automatically. So the user interface is truly internationalized. So you can work it from a person who's relatively young to someone who's quite old and speaks a language that's not very common in your area. Thai, for example, or Korean. Russian comes in who's sick. You can use this survey system, type in your own questions, such as, what is your level of pain? How much pain do you have? When did the pain start? How do you feel about the pain? Are you taking any drugs for the pain? And you can get a series of yes-no questions like that spoken to the person in Russian. Then you could log on to the site, and for just this one patient, go to that particular hospital, to that particular doctor, to that particular survey, on that particular date and time. You can filter your way down to that particular patient and see what his answers were to what is his level of pain. Is it on a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Is it good, bad, poor? Is it yes or no type answers? And you can see them in the English language, even though he is answering them in Russian. Then on the other report, you can give, for example, you can create and modify these dynamically. You can add, save, complete rows, export them to Excel, preview the reports, delete them, modify them, and change them. And then, of course, you can also query up various answers. For example, we've queried up a very crude sort of table for a particular block of patients in a very low level, where for question number 1, patient number 1 on this day and time picked none of the above. Here we have an excellent rating from patient number 60 for question number 2, and here we have another excellent rating for a patient here. And as this data comes in, it's live, you can just click a refresh button and it will reload itself on the fly, and we can see the answers to our patient number 57, the survey we were just taking, of an excellent response.
And let's say for this potential customer that has, let's say, 200 users, 20 sites, what are some of the questions that you would like to address to move on to be able to do a pilot?
I would more like to want to know how he wants to organize the doctors. Are they organized, for example, across all of his hospitals? Are they organized by a single company? So, for example, when someone is picking a doctor, we want to pick an exact doctor name. We don't want to just type in Smith or Dr. Smith, because the computer will think those are two different doctors. So what would be the format of his doctor list? Is it just a list of long names or numbers? I think names would be appropriate. We want to load them into his account so that when one's creating a survey and they click a doctor, they get a selection from a list rather than just making it up as they go along or skipping it. Because if they skip a doctor, then there'll be no data on a doctor. Mr. Dr. Blank will have all of the answers to the survey. Another question would be, who's going to capture, if anybody, or do we need to capture the age of the patient, or perhaps a patient range? Are they 40 to 50, or are they just young, let's say adult, a minor? Or they actually need to actually key in at the terminal level when the nurse or whoever is creating the initial QR code, are they going to type in 58? And if they don't have an age, are we going to abort this? Or they just, if they don't have an age, proceed? And that's a kind of a fundamental question. If they don't have an age, then your age report's going to be, what's the average age of a patient becomes meaningless, because you don't have ages for some of them.
Right.
So there's some few basic questions like that. I don't really have any questions about the number of surveys that he has. The current system can handle 5 responses for a given question. It can handle yes, no, maybe good, bad, ugly, or 1, 2, 3, or even ask you, are you taking aspirin, yes, no? If you're taking aspirin, are you taking Bayer, or are you taking some other brand, Tylenol? So you can actually type in those kinds. I'm not too worried about that for what he's doing. That's pretty well thought out. But if he has more than, say, 5 answers to a question, we would like to know that very soon. Because 5 seems to be a nice screen fit for this little small terminal here.
I see. And tell us a little bit about the...
Undefined.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the actor. And is that... how does that work?
It's a combination of Flash technology, JavaScript, jQuery, a lot of details. The system interrogates the server on the fly and says, give me question number 6 for this terminal, for this particular patient. And of course the server then looks up and knows what you have typed in and what language. And so it simply sends back a list of buttons, like the Proximo versus Next, the title, the subject, in the person's native language. That is then synthesized on the computer on the fly into an animated actor. If you were to watch the screen here for just a moment, when the person actually reaches and clicks on average, her face will move and turn and look at the buttons as they click them. So she's looking straight ahead. If I click average, her face will turn and look at the screen. This is all done dynamically on the fly with the computer software. Her lips are synthesized to sync with the words as she speaks them. If I can get a repeat here, let's go to the next question.
Okay.
And of course, if they don't want to hear it, they can always mute her so that you don't hear anything. So this would be an Arabic spoken words.
عملية التصنيع. كيف تقيمون مجاملة للشخص الذي دون المعلومات الشخصية ومعلومات التأمين الصحي الخاص.
If you can see the Arabic lettering on the right, it's right to left. Even the smiley faces down below are all translated into Arabic. And then down very bar here at the very bottom, Simon, you're shooting a picture of your hand.
Okay, right here.
You want to back up a little bit, maybe.
There you go.
There you go. And you can see that's all been translated automatically on the fly into Arabic.
Yeah.
And at any time you want to, perhaps a language that's a little less exotic would be Spanish. And repeating.
Proceso de inscripción. ¿Cómo calificaría usted la amabilidad de la persona que tomó su información personal y su información de seguro de enfermedad?
And Simon, the Proximo button in the lower right-hand corner, which is about the only word in Spanish that I understand. Mm-hmm. That means next. Yeah. And of course, none of the above button has been translated. And excelente, and gran, and bueno, pobre, and I can't pronounce this, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Terrible. Thank you.
Muy bien.
The computer's better at it than I am. That's the basic philosophy behind the system, is make it very simple and idiot-proof for the patient, and also make it very easy for the person who is creating the surveys. All they have to do is answer a few simple questions. The patient's ID, which we're not specific. If you have specific ID numbers you wish to enter, like an entire patient band, we need to know that. Right now you can type in 1234 or 7897 or Fred or whatever code your hospital wants. Our system will capture it and produce it in the reports for your output.
Well, very good, Fred. Well, thank you very much for sharing with us this information on the iPatient Surveys project.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Fred.